Welcome to the Disneyland with Kids podcast, where we help you plan your vacation in 30 minutes or less. Wondering what character meal to book? What rides might be too scary for your little one? And of course, the most important question, should you really spend $200 on a lightsaber? Our community members are talking about all this and more in the Disneyland with Kids group on Facebook. Come join in the conversation. On this episode of the Disneyland with Kids podcast, we are talking about the best and worst souvenirs and splurges at the Disneyland Resort. That is right. We are going to tell you some of our favorite souvenirs and what we thought was a complete disappointment. I am Becca from This Crazy Adventure Called Life.
And I am Julie from Mom Rewritten.
So Julie, in the Disneyland with Kids Facebook group, one of our most popular topics that our members bring up is souvenir recommendations, or I love how they always word this. The most important way is they want to know how much money they should plan on bringing for souvenirs. Mm-hmm. So that money question, Disney is expensive. So let's talk about all of this today. And I really want to know some of your favorite purchases and if there are any that you're like, do not buy this item. So let's start with budget, because I think this is a major concern for families. I think there are a few factors, with how a family decides on souvenir budget. It's not a one size fit all, because different families have different budgets, obviously, and how often you go to the parks, what your personal purchasing habits are. Like, do you like a lot of stuff? All of that can play into what your budget will be. So how do you look at budget and souvenirs for your family when you head to Disneyland, Julie?
Well, in all honesty, because Disneyland is often a day trip for my family, there are just many times we don't even do souvenirs at all. For longer visits, my kids are pretty content to bring their own birthday or Christmas money to spend on something they might want, and I'll chip in for them. But we don't have a lot of stuff. We just we keep it pretty simple, so we just don't buy a lot of things when we go to Disneyland. It's more for the experience. So I'd say most of the time, my kids are pretty happy with smaller items like a pen or a T-shirt. And I do know that's probably because we go to Disneyland frequently. And for people that don't go as often, they probably want to splurge more on mementos. So what about your family, Becca?
Yeah. Well, my family, even though we don't go as often as your family, probably, we do still go a lot more often than other families. And I agree that probably plays into that some. What my family does is we give each kid a dollar limit, and it was $25 each. But my oldest, he's getting older. And so he doesn't like all the little toys and things now. He's more like, I want a Lego set. I want, those types of things. So I think we're going to have to bump him up to $50 soon, because it's really hard to find some of these more tween items that are in that $25 range. But they get $25 to spend however they want on whether that's one item, two items, whatever. But we do take care of all the snacks, Mickey ears for them, those types of things. So that's not included in their budget. But I do have a few rules as far as what they can purchase. So I want to know, before I share my rules, do you have guidelines for what your kids are allowed to pick out, Julie?
Yeah. So I'm not crazy about large or impractical items. I guess that's just my budget parent mode coming out, I guess. We have never done balloons. I just really don't want to carry a balloon around all day. And anything big, we don't have room for it. We don't need it. And my kids are pretty much okay with that. So, I don't mind the plush toys because my kids do play with those. So we'll get, maybe a small stuffy. And I usually encourage something practical like a T-shirt. But if the kids are spending their own cash, then it's usually fair game. And, usually what they do pick out is okay with me.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned space, and I have to say that is sometimes I will veto something because of the size and just how much room it takes up, because you and we both moved recently to much bigger places, but we were both in a small, 1,200, right around there, square foot place before we moved. And so we both felt that pinch of space, and we're like, nothing, I can see that, nothing big. And you also mentioned balloons, which I actually love the balloons and I feel they're worth it, but I could totally see as a local being like, no balloons.
Yeah, and as a local, I mean, I drive my car, but a lot of people fly. So you really got to think about that. Do you have room in your suitcase for
Yeah.
whatever you're buying?
Yeah, so we like to use it to like tie on our stroller, and maybe we'll have to do a whole episode just about balloons. Wouldn't that be funny? But we tie it on our stroller and we use it for the week, and then if we're not driving, we hand it off to somebody else to spread the magic. But I can definitely see a day if it's only a day trip, that would be really hard to make that purchase. One of our rules is that you can't buy something that I can find on Amazon or Target or at Walmart for cheaper, like the exact same thing. So like the Buzz Lightyear, they're pretty good size ones. They're like 12 to 18 inches. And the Zerg, those things that they sell at Disneyland, I am like, no, I can buy those online, same exact one for a lot cheaper. And this is a rule we actually made. We started this rule at zoos and aquariums because my kids always wanted to get the cheap plastic tube of animals, and they're like $5 at Walmart. But of course, at the gift shop, they're like $15. Nowhere on the packaging or on the items does it say, the name of the place you're at. And so we're like, no. So that became a rule in our family, and it's actually everywhere it needs to have like something that's unique to that place, or a toy that you can only get there is usually our rule.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into our first category, and that's best souvenirs to purchase before your trip, which sounds counterintuitive. It sounds really weird to say, let's go purchase souvenirs before our trip, but it's actually a great money saver. You and I talked about that in our Save Money on Disney episode, which is one of our very first episodes we did. Yeah, it's just a great thing. A lot of people actually do this. So Julie, what are some of your favorite items to pick up before you actually head to Disneyland?
All right. So here's the heart of why I personally don't buy too many souvenirs in the parks, because I usually purchase those less expensive items before we go. So some of my favorite items to buy my kids ahead of time are things they can wear, like t-shirts, hats, sunglasses. If you've got really young kids, bottles of cheap bubbles are really good. I mean, they've got them. They'll have Mickey on them. You can get them at the 99-cent store, and your kid will not know the difference. Other things like things that glow at night, like glow sticks, bracelets, wands. Your kids are going to love that. As soon as the night falls, just bust those out. They're going to be so happy. And so I usually buy souvenirs in advance on Shop Disney, Target, Walmart, Amazon. So how about you, Becca?
A lot of the same items. So clothing, and I really love Target they usually have a lot of great Disney graphic tees for that. Just go to the dollar store and get the glow sticks and get those out at night so you don't have to buy the expensive glow toys. Also, just lots of, like you said, lots of those little things. Pick up the pencils at the dollar store that are Disney themed if you want to have a pencil or something for them, or water bottles even that are Disney themed at the dollar store that you can pick up so that you don't have to buy those things at the parks. Let them get the really fun, unique things at the parks, and the things you can find other places, pick that up beforehand. Let's talk about like how to give those souvenirs, because that's part of the fun, right? Like you're getting something new that you get to pick out. Some parents like to give their kids all the items before you go to the park, or like give it all the first day. But one great tip I've seen in our group is that people will save the items and they'll pull out a new one here and there, maybe even take them into the park without letting their kids know, and give them to them throughout the day, or a new thing each morning. And I think that's great, because part of the fun of the souvenirs is getting something new, right?
Yeah.
And so it curbs that begging for something because they already have something that's new for them. Are there any other tips with how to give that you've seen, Julie?
Yeah. I saw a friend of mine had like brought pre-packaged, like she just wrapped them up. And then every day when they'd leave the park, she'd have an excuse to like go back into the room, and she'd put one of those little gifts on the pillow. When they would come back in the evening, she would tell her kid, I think Tinkerbell came in and left you some pixie dust. And so every day they had a reason to leave the park, because it was kind of a way to get them out of the park. Like, oh, I think you have a present waiting for you. And then there would be something that they could use the next day, like, something fun that they got ahead of time, but Tinkerbell would deliver it to the room.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And that's such a great idea to have that motivation to go back to the hotel. One of these days, I'll tell the stories of my son when we've left Disneyland
I think we all
and
have those
the
stories.
entire resort hearing his meltdowns. But oh man, I have lots of stories like that. That's the sad part. Even though I like to save money on souvenirs by pre-purchasing, I am still always willing to spend my money at Disneyland. Like, I'm gonna say I went to Downtown Disney during this closure, and I think that was the most willing I was to ever spend. I was like,
I
"Give
feel
me
that.
all the things." I came home with way more stuff than I've ever bought in one trip. Like,
I'm
even went
feeling
in there
that.
for a whole week.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of the best souvenirs, and we'll also talk about splurges that maybe aren't souvenirs at Disneyland. And there are so many items to choose from at Disneyland, from toys for the kids to clothing to the iconic Minnie and Mickey ears, coffee cups. I mean, there really is something for everyone, no matter what your thing that you like to buy is. Like, some people like, mugs. Some people like to collect Minnie ears. So whatever there is, like, there's something for you. What are your top 3 to 5 souvenirs that you tend to gravitate towards when you're shopping?
Ooh, fun. Shopping for me. Well, I have to be truthful and admit that most of the souvenir shopping I do is actually for me.
Same here.
I'm usually drawn to clothing first. So I love to have t-shirts that remind me of my trip and, I can wear them back home. Then I'd say like home decor items like picture frames and houseware items. I can have little hidden Mickeys all over the house. And Christmas ornaments, that's another special way to remember a trip too. And I have a lot of special Disney ornaments on my tree. My mom got me started on the Disney Pandora charms. So I'll occasionally indulge in one of those and add it to my Pandora bracelet. And one of these days, I'm going to invest in one of those gorgeous Dooney and Burke purses or a wallet as the ultimate splurge. I just can't pull the trigger yet. So let's hear your top souvenirs, Becca.
So some of ours overlap. Every trip, I try to get a ornament that reflects that trip. So like when you and we went for the opening of Galaxy's Edge, I found a Star Wars ornament that had the Millennium Falcon on it. And then, when we went for the first Oogie Boogie Bash, I found an ornament with Oogie Boogie on it. Those types of things. I love a good hoodie, and the hoodies are a splurge for me, but they last me like 3 to 5 years usually before they start to wear out, and they are just so soft. And I'm very particular about my hoodies, and so it usually takes me 3 or 5 years to find a second one that I really like anyways. And then I have a Minnie ear addiction, and I don't know why, because I rarely wear them. And Jessica, one of the other founders, she's the same way. Like, we both want all the Minnie ears, but we don't actually wear them that often.
Yeah. They're not that comfortable.
They're not. Other than that, I don't really have a ton that I look for in the parks. I did find like an amazing water bottle during my last trip. Like I said, I was like all about spending the money though. I don't know if I normally would have gotten that, but those are my main things. I think just those 3 things, and I'm pretty happy. I do like t-shirts too. A really good comfy t-shirt is a great one. But now that we've covered what we like, Julie, I have to ask, since this is best and worst souvenirs, what is one souvenir that you have purchased or seen in the park so you were just like, nope, won't ever suggest that to someone?
Well, as the mom of a little princess, we have walked through the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique just to take a peek. And while we haven't indulged in the splurge just yet, not saying we won't eventually, but I just can't recommend that anyone should purchase Disney princess dresses at the theme parks. Some of the dresses in the theme parks are $200 or more. And if you think your child will want to dress up, then you should definitely be purchasing these items ahead of time, because you're going to get a significant discount. So my big tip is to shop those post-Halloween sales. Get your costumes at clearance prices. The kids can still wear those princess dresses into the parks, and they can still participate at Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, just without the outfit upsell.
Yes, that is a great one because we actually have a lot of people in our group that have posted when they've taken their kids to Bippity Boppity Boutique, but brought their own costume or dress or whatever to put them in after so that they can save that money. So that's a really great tip. Let's just dive into that. The best and worst items for kids. I have a lot of opinions, like we noticed from my rules about souvenirs. So I'm excited to see how my thoughts compare to yours on this one on the best and the worst ones. So, what are some of the best souvenirs for kids? And also, because kids covers a wide age range, maybe just make sure to let us know what age group that is for each souvenir.
The silhouette is a classic, so I want to mention that first. It's a souvenir that's only available in the parks, and they have a long history going back to the beginning days of Disneyland. So these hand cut silhouettes are a treasure. They're just a true memento of a Disneyland vacation, and I still have mine from when I was 5 years old. This souvenir is ideal for any age. The artist can even do a baby's face in about a minute, so it's a pretty quick process. But most kids won't get too excited about having a silhouette as a souvenir. It's really more for the grown-ups. So let me talk about souvenirs that the kids will actually enjoy. What souvenir my kids have always loved, and it's really funny because it's like the cheapest thing in the park, but pressed pennies are such a big hit. I
Yeah.
even bought my son this plastic case at Disneyland. They had it at the register, so it'll hold all the pennies, which kind of makes it more of a collectible thing for him. And I'd say that pressed pennies are a pretty great souvenir for kids about 4 to 8. My son's 8 years old now, and he still likes looking for them, but it's not as exciting as it was when he was about 5 or 6. Over the years, I've bought all our kids' baseball hats in the parks, and that's a great practical souvenir. There's just some really great unique hats you can only get at the Disney parks, like the Pluto version that has long ears, and kids can wear them back at home. So I just preferred the baseball style hat over the mouse ears hats or the headbands for kids. I think you're going to get a lot fewer complaints, and the kids will probably wear them more. And that's just a souvenir that's good for all ages. But I think probably upper elementary age kids and teens will probably like picking those out. And then really most of the time, my kids just want to spend their souvenir money on candy. So, having your own bag of candy is just something that my teenagers particularly prefer to spend their cash on. So those prepackaged Goofy's Candy Company sour balls, they're sold in quite a few of the Disneyland shops. They always come home with us after each trip. And even when I go up by myself to Disneyland, my son always pulls me aside before I go, Mom, bring me home some sour balls. So let's hear your suggestions, Becca.
All right. So, I mean, I have twins that are 5, and then I have my son that's a tween. And so I have to say, like, they're still kind of into that toy stage. So they usually get a toy or something. Like I said, I try to make sure the toys are specific to Disneyland. So they actually have a lot of toys that are. But one thing my kids really have enjoyed that wasn't a toy is the Disneyland coloring books that they have in the parks, and they're usually only like $5. So it's a really good, cheap item that they can get, and it lasts for a long time, and it lets them color Disney pictures long after vacation is over. So that's a great one. I agree on the baseball hats. In fact, for a while, I don't know if they still have them, but a couple years ago, my twins had gotten ones that were a hat, and they were a character hat, but then they also had the ears. So it was like that character's was wearing the ears. So like my one son had a Lightning McQueen one, but it had Mickey ears on it. And then on the back, it had Lightning McQueen on it. Like that was Lightning McQueen's hat. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
his
And I've
Mickey,
seen those. They're, yeah.
yeah, and so but it was a baseball hat. It gave them shade, which was nice. And then my other twin got one that had Mickey wearing his own Mickey ears, but it also had sunglasses attached to it. So he kind of normally I wouldn't let them get sunglasses, but he got around it with that one. So those are some of my favorites, but my family does also love, and this is more a family gift, but we have really loved getting the park puzzles that they have in the park. So like we have a Haunted Mansion one, there's map ones. They have some that aren't specific to the parks. Like we got this last time, my husband found one he really wanted that was up and it's double-sided, but it's still only sold in the parks. It's a park signature puzzle. Well, parks and maybe Shop Disney. So he picked that up. So puzzles are another great one that we really enjoy in our family. And so I do feel like I have to bring this one up, Julie, even though my family doesn't personally do pin trading. Pins are a very popular souvenir and you can trade them in the parks. I think we're going to have a full episode about pin trading at some point because it is so, we'll have to have a guest because I don't think any of the four of us are big pin traders.
No.
But I like pins when I can find one that I really like, that really reminds me of the trip, or like I got one at Galaxy's Edge that had the actual date that it opened. So that was a very special one to me. And then I got one a while back when I first really started taking my website and making it a business. There was a Donald one that came out that says, "I don't tweet, I quack." And so I purchased that one. But I'm not huge on pins. Are you really big on pins, Julie?
No, I have a teenager that likes them and does collect them. That's usually the souvenir that they pick out. But, some of them are actually really expensive. Like you would think that, oh, it's a pin. It won't cost that much, but some of them are like $30. So and my child likes to put them on their backpack. And so I'm always like a little bit worried about that. Like, are you going to lose it? But it's one of those things that's kind of fun because you can trade them and do fun things with them with the cast members in the parks. So I think we are going to have to cover this more in depth in the future.
We will. So again, this is best and worst souvenir. So I have to ask, a worst souvenir purchase or something you've seen that is geared towards kids and you either regret it or you tell people, no, don't waste your money on that.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say that if you're considering a toy souvenir with lights and sounds, have your kid play with it for a few minutes in the store. If that toy is annoying to you after a few minutes of noise, I want you to picture how you're going to feel about that toy after your kid has been playing with it for an hour, 2 hours, at 2 a.m. in the hotel room. Because you might rethink your decision to make that purchase and take it from someone who bought an obscenely loud, light spinning Buzz Lightyear for my 3-year-old. Skip the noisy toys.
That is probably the best advice I think we've ever given on this podcast. I love it.
It's true.
It is very much true. Okay, so mine isn't noisy, but do you want to know mine? Because I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this one because it is one of the most popular items in the park.
Oh, well, spill it.
Okay, bubble wands. Oh my gosh. I wanted to love them so much. And I will say they did a great job of entertaining my twins. But, okay, first thing is, like you mentioned before, they sell bubbles. I mean, you can pick them up so cheap somewhere else, right? And these bubble wands are, I don't know what they'll be when the parks reopen, but they were, when we bought them, they were $25. I think they're already up to $30. You can buy, obviously, 99-cent bubbles, but you can buy bubble wands that are very similar to this for like $7 from Target and Walgreens. But here's the other thing is, these bubble wands are so finicky. I have yet, like almost everyone I know, they're like, the second you have to replace the bubble solution, they no longer work right. They start piling the bubbles out in this like foam thing, which kids love, but it's a huge mess. Everyone's like, well, you have to teach your kids to point them down. And I mean, what kid is going to point them down all the time, right? They did a great job of entertaining my twins when we bought them for them, but everyone I know that has purchased one says that they're not worth the money.
Yeah, I have to agree. We had a Buzz Lightyear one that made noise and had lights.
Yeah.
and they just don't do very good once they've been tipped sideways. And yeah, what little kid isn't going to tip it sideways? They just make a terrible mess. They stop working. So I agree with that. Don't buy the bubble ones.
So one thing I love about Disneyland is that there are several free souvenirs that you can actually get around the park. So what are some of your favorite free items that make good souvenirs?
Well, maps have always been one of my favorite freebies in the parks. And if they have them available, maps are just a really fun way to kind of recount your trip memories with the kids. They love looking at the pictures and talking about the things that you did once you get back home. Celebration buttons, those are available for free outside of City Hall. And those include those very popular birthday buttons. And if you do character dining, you'll get a button that's exclusive to that particular meal. Of course, that's not free because you pay for the meal, but you do get a souvenir button. And then character autographs, those are free to request, although you might have to buy an autograph book or bring your own notebook for them to sign in. And don't forget a pen. And of course, photos are the ultimate free souvenir. You want to take all the pictures, and moms, get in the pictures. Then when you get home, print the pictures, frame them, put them into an album for your kids. They want to reminisce. They love to talk about their trips. And that's really part of the joy of Disneyland, is going home and talking about the vacation. So the photos are only great souvenirs if they aren't being stored in your phone or your camera or stuck in the cloud.
I'm probably one of the worst of it. Of course, I have them all over my website, and you have yours on your website too, but I really need to get them onto a frame. I'm thinking I might just have to get one of the digital frames, because now remember the old digital frames, like you had to put them onto an SD card and then put this. Now you can we bought my parents one for Christmas, so you can just send them from your phone directly to the frame.
Oh, I'm going to get one of those. That's awesome.
I think I need to get myself one, because that makes it really easy to display those photos. So that's a great tip there. Okay, so now when it comes to souvenirs, I think there's one area where Disney really outdid themselves, and that is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Oh my goodness, the souvenirs you can get in Galaxy's Edge. But if you plan to get these souvenirs, you're going to be spending a lot of money, especially on 2 items. Julie, what are those items?
Yeah, there are a lot of places to purchase souvenirs in Galaxy's Edge. The Toy Dairy and Toy Maker is my favorite shop. But for sure, the 2 big experiences are building a droid and building a lightsaber. And see how I call them experiences and not just souvenirs, because purchasing these items isn't just like walking into the shop and taking your chosen item to the checkout counter, because these are full-on immersive, very fully personalized items that include a lot of hands-on participation. So at Droid Depot, guests can build their own BB series or R series unit. You'll be pulling parts from a conveyor belt system. The cast members are available to assist with the building process if it's needed. And the droids use like a Bluetooth technology, so they communicate in Galaxy's Edge, and they beep and they wiggle when they're near other droids. And then once outside the park, you can use the remote control to move them around. And the cost for building the droid is about $100. So the second experience is at Savi's workshop, and that's where guests build their own custom designed lightsaber. These lightsabers come with a carrying case, and they have a cost that starts at about $200, with additional customization items that can be purchased separately. Disney recommends this experience for kids 5 and up, but I'd venture this is more of a spendy souvenir that's probably more appropriate for teens, adults, Star Wars superfans. I haven't done the lightsaber building experience, but I hear that's really dramatic. And both the Droid Depot and Savi's Workshop require advanced reservations, so up to 60 days before your Disneyland trip.
Yeah, once in a while they do have walk-up spots, so if you didn't get a reservation, always double check, but it's definitely best to have a reservation. They really are a full experience. In fact, Julie, you and I were together when I built my own little BB-8 to bring home for my kids after Galaxy's Edge opened, and I don't know if you remember, like it threw me off. I'd be carrying it, it would all of a sudden beep and wiggle, and then that night at the hotel, because we shared a room, that thing would not shut up.
You're like, do I have to break it to open it and turn this thing off?
Right. This was right when it opened. Now they do a much better job of explaining everything to you, but we could not figure out. And then this is the only thing to think about with the droids and lightsabers is bringing them home. I remember my struggle. Do I check it? Do I carry it on? All that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. I did eventually end up checking it, but it was quite the internal debate that I had when I was packing
Yeah.
up. So, not all splurges are going to be things that you bring home as a souvenir. Let's talk, and we're going to have to, I know we're probably going to go way over our time here, but let's talk quickly about some other splurges that people might enjoy during their vacation.
Yeah. So I already discussed Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique earlier. And yes, I definitely love to share this experience with my daughter soon. She'd adore it. The prices for this princess makeover really vary from around 75 to upwards of $200 or more, depending on the outfit you choose. And that's a cost savings if you bring your own costume. But some of the perks, including having a keepsake photo session, can really be priceless. Other splurges inside the park include dining packages with reserved viewing for shows and parades, which can be worth that extra cost during very busy seasons when you don't want to fight the crowds. However, even with the add-on price, this doesn't guarantee an actual seat. It might just be offering a reservation for a standing only section. So be sure to know what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
Now, dessert parties like the one for World of Color are another great splurge. I personally don't think I'll watch World of Color again without the dessert party add-on because you receive an actual seat to watch the show along with some nice snacks. And after a long day in the park, sitting down to watch this nighttime show is such a treat. But at around $90 per person, it's definitely a splurge. And if you're staying at either Disney's Grand Californian or the Disneyland Hotel, splurging on a poolside cabana is the ultimate luxury. You'll have a dedicated place to lounge in the shade, and it's something I've always wanted to do with my family. We love our Disneyland pool days.
Those are all great added extras, and it's really a personal decision. You're right. Like, for instance, my boys have no interest in Bippity Bop Boutique. They do have a nights package, but they have no interest in that. Here's the funny thing is, even though I'm not a foodie, I love both Skyline Lounge and the World of Color dessert party. And I think we'll have to do another in-depth episode of those later. But I did the dessert party one time with you. It was actually my second time doing it. And while I would never pay the $90 per person for my entire family, I just can't imagine watching World of Color any other way. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think this is why like souvenirs and splurges are such a popular topic in the Disneyland with Kids Facebook group, is because nobody wants to spend a bunch of money and be disappointed, but there are so many amazing things to choose from. You want to add those on, but you don't, like I said, you don't want to waste your money and you want to know which to avoid. So be sure to come in the group and ask if you're listening to this and you're wondering if something is worth it. So Julie, any other tips really quick for people to wanting to research souvenirs before their trip?
Yeah, check out Shop Disney as they have some of the items and the prices on the website, and it'll give you a good idea of what things cost, but it'll also let you know what maybe you can hold off on and purchase after your trip online, and you might even be able to score a deal on it.
That is a great tip. I think we should wrap this up with our traditional Would You Rather. And this Would You Rather was submitted by Alex A. And I have to say, when I clicked on this to bring up the Would You Rather, Facebook notified me that the day I chose this one, it was Alex's birthday. So it was meant to be.
Happy birthday.
Would you rather have free dining for your trip or get all this merchandise for free?
Ooh, well, that's a tough one since I usually pinch my pennies for both of those options. But I think I'd prefer to go with the free merchandise, and I'd finally get that Dooney and Burke purse I've been dreaming about. So how about you, Becca?
I mean, how can you not take the merchandise? It's just, to me, it's worth so much more. You can only eat so much food, but you can shop and, shop and
that's
shop.
right. They can all come home with you.
All right, that's it for this episode of the Disneyland with Kids podcast. You have been listening to Julie and Becca as we discuss the best and worst souvenirs and splurges at the Disneyland Resort. Let us know your thoughts by joining the conversation in the Disneyland with Kids group on Facebook. And we will see you real soon.